Hello. Thank you for coming to the second session of Xavier Library's Mental Health Chess Lessons. In session 1, we learned about setting up the board and how the pieces move. As you can see, we now have the board completely set up. The pawns are going across the second row as the first line of defense. In the back row, each piece is set up in its appropriate position. Today, we will learn about using strategy in order to win the game. As I said earlier, the purpose of chess is to capture your opponent's king. First, let's look at the different ways the king can be threatened. If your king is in direct threat but is able to get out, this is known as check. The king must get out of check. There are 3 different ways he can do this. The first is to simply move out. Moving away from the threat, he can no longer be taken. If possible, the king can take the piece that is threatening him, or it can be taken by another piece. Either way, the threat of check has been eliminated. The third way to get out is to block the threat. The king is no longer in check. If the king is being threatened and he cannot get out, this is known as checkmate, and the game is over. In this position, the king is in checkmate. He is directly threatened by the rook. He cannot take the rook. There is not another piece to take the rook. He cannot move out the way as the queen is now threatening the king, and he cannot block the piece. At this point, the king is captured and the game is over. Now we will discuss the different strategies that goes into winning a chess game. Strategy is important because all the pieces move different ways. In order for all the pieces to work together as a team, you must have a plan. This is also important in real life. As you set goals for yourself, it is important to have a plan and know what course of action you would like to take. Having a plan can also be beneficial if your plan does not go exactly how you have wanted. A general idea of what you want to do will help alleviate any anxiety or stress you have as you begin to implement your plan, and also if things do not go the way you wish for them to go. In chess, this can be the opponent not moving the way you wish for them to move. If you are setting up for a certain attack and you rely on your opponent giving you a certain opening, but instead your opponent moves a different piece, having a general idea of what you're going to do will allow you to continue with your plan even though it has not gone the way you have wanted. In chess, the opening strategy is to control these squares. Control of these squares gives you access to the board. The easiest way to control these squares is to either put pieces into them or close to them to where their influence can influence what the opponent does in regards to these squares. As I said earlier, the purpose of the game is to capture the king. Therefore, you do not want to move your king because that gives it the threat of being captured. Also, the king can only move 1 square at a time, and he is not allowed to put himself in check. So therefore, he is not an offensive piece. He's not one that you want to attack with. Also, as your queen is a very powerful piece and a very important piece, at the opening game, you do not want to move her too much. If your king is your most important piece, you want your queen next to him as much as possible in order to protect him from an attack from your opponent. Think of this as if you were a very important person. You do not want your bodyguard away from you. You want your bodyguard right next to you. The smart thing to do is to wait until the game develops and you see an opening and then bring your queen out. Think of this as a football game. You do not want to use your trick play in the first quarter. You want to bring it out in the fourth quarter with the game on the line. So therefore, in order to exert influence on these pieces, you want to use your pawns and the back pieces. The smart way to do it is to develop your back pieces, get them out, and then attack with them. Several opening moves that allow you to do this are simply moving your pawn into the square. This is a very common opening. It's a very smart opening, as your opponent will then usually also do that in order to open up his pieces. As you can see, both the bishop is open and the queen is open. A common chess opening is to move into the square. Your opponent does the same. And then to bring a knight out. Remember, the knight is able to jump pieces. What this does is you are in possession of a square. You are exerting influence over another square. And your knight is developed to where it could begin to attack. Another opening that people like to use is the queenside bishop, the queenside pawn. While this isn't as popular a move, it allows open access to your king. It could then be followed by moving your bishop to protect your king and allowing it open range. As I said, when playing chess, it is very important at the beginning of the game to get your back pieces out. This is called development. Once you develop your pieces, to continue to attack with them. The way you can get your rook out is simply moving the pawn and then the rook. As I said, the knight is able to jump pieces. Getting your bishop out. When starting a chess game, you have 20 different options for opening moves. Each pawn can move one time or two times. That is 16 moves, 17, 18, 19, 20. So just by you making one move and your opponent making one move, there are 400 different ways in which the board can look. This shows the complexity of chess and why strategy is important, as you have to be prepared for any of these 400 ways and how the game might develop from that point on. As we have learned today, strategy is very important when it comes to playing chess. Knowing what you are doing, having a plan, and then executing that plan can help you accomplish the ultimate goal of capturing your opponent's king while making smart moves as to not put your own king in danger. As I said earlier, all the pieces must work together. In real life, you can compare this to teamwork, as you and other people in your group must work together to accomplish your project goal. This also leads into trust. While yes, in chess, the pieces will move the way that they will move, in real life, you have to trust that your teammates will move the way which they are needed to move in order to accomplish the goal. Thank you for viewing today's mental health chess lesson. I will see you for session 3. Goodbye.